Kaseya talks about the VSA ransomware attack and its upcoming roadmap. HP unveils new conferencing tech, and we take a look at a story about the pros and cons of being married to your business partner, plus a special guest interview with True Method's Gary Pica on how the managed services landscape has changed. It's ChannelPro Weekly number 203, Elvis from Home. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 203. My name is Matt Matlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this program. For the folks out there like you who are the VARs, the MSPs, the IT integrators, the IT consultants, folks like you who work with other businesses implementing and securing and designing and all that kind of stuff, technology solutions with other businesses. That is who you are. And no one knows that industry better than my cohort in arms, the man is currently sitting in a hotel room somewhere in Las Vegas, executive editor, Rich Freeman. Welcome, Rich.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So are you out there for the Elvis impersonation conference that's going on?
Well, let's all hope not, because that was the worst Elvis impersonation anyone has ever heard. But no, I am out here in Las Vegas for the Kaseya ConnectIT conference, which is going on right here, right now. I'm in the fabulous MGM Grand Hotel right now.
Ooh, the MGM Grand. They sure picked a good spot for that particular show. Have you seen any Elvis impersonators since you've been in Las Vegas?
You know, it's a good point. I have not. This may be the longest stretch of time I've ever gone in Las Vegas without seeing Elvis.
I wonder if the pandemic has affected the Elvis impersonation industry, because you have to go outside, I guess. Are there virtual Elvis impersonators that you can bring into like your Zoom calls and stuff?
I've never looked into this before. You know, yeah, EFH, Elvis from Home, or something like that. Yeah, I don't know if that exists.
We're gonna have to look into that, and if it doesn't exist, Rich, I think that is a business opportunity that we should really think about, because who wouldn't want to bring an Elvis impersonator into your virtual meetings? I think it's a good thing.
And really, any meeting. Can you imagine? Because Matt and I participate in a weekly editorial staff meeting every Monday morning. What if Elvis just joined us every week?
It would brighten everybody's day.
I think so.
This is the new thing we're gonna be looking at. So Elvis from Home. Look for him in a Teams or Zoom meeting near you. So Rich, so you're in Las Vegas. You're at this Kaseya event. I know we got some news coming out of this. Sadly, though, we do not have a guest this week. We were supposed to have a guest. What happened?
Well, you know what? And I'll just go ahead and say the guest we were so looking forward to having join us on the podcast is named Shauna Phippen. She is an MSP from the Bay Area, Northern California. She's spoken at our events before. She's appeared on the cover of the magazine before, and she, at one point in time, was planning to be at this Kaseya show. Those plans kind of fell through, but she was still going to be on the podcast this week. I spoke with her about that as recently as 2 days ago, as of this recording, and she woke up the next morning. She couldn't taste, she couldn't smell anything. She felt, unfortunately, she has COVID, and she's doing okay, but she's not feeling very well. And so our thoughts are with you, Shauna. Please rest, recover, get back to health soon.
Yep. And when that happens, we will be delighted to reschedule and have her on, because I was looking forward to having her on. So that we'll bring her on in the near future at some point. So, but until then, yeah, get better. So Rich, it's just us. We haven't done a show just us in a while. I'm not even sure how to do it anymore, but I guess why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to? You got this show. What else you got going on?
So last week was pretty much the 1 week that I'm just going to be at home in Seattle all week long, almost until Thanksgiving. So I'm here in Las Vegas at this show. I'm going to be at the and we'll talk about this probably at the end of the show. I'm going to be at the Acronis event next week and another event in Las Vegas the week after that. So I'm finishing out the year with a 2019-esque travel spurt here, and then middle of November I kind of shut it down for 2021.
Yeah, are you going to be taking some time off, doing anything fun?
I haven't set the dates yet, but I will definitely be looking to take a good hunk of December off if I can. I'm sure everybody in our audience can kind of identify with that. We're all looking to slow down a little bit and take some time off. It's been a difficult 18 months, hasn't it?
It has definitely been a busy 18 months. I will say that. I also want to take a little bit of time off here towards the end of the year because I don't get much opportunity to take time off. So that would be nice. So Rich, you know what? Before we dive into the news, I want to take a couple minutes to talk about 2022, because I'm sure right now you're in the process of kind of thinking about next year and putting things together like editorial calendars. Any insights or peeks into what we might be seeing from ChannelPro next year?
I mean, our 2022 editorial calendar is up on channelpronetwork.com right now. I'd have to call that up in a hurry just to refresh my memory about what we have on there. But I know you can expect us to be addressing some things that are very top of mind with channel pros out there right now, based on my conversations with them. And so, hiring and retention is like this huge issue. That we're going to be dedicating some space to that. I think we all kind of understand that the managed services space is in a transitional time right now. Managed services, as we know it, kind of originated as being all about managing devices, endpoint management. And it's not as if that task goes away, but more and more it's about managing other workloads, managing workloads in the cloud. And so we'll be talking a little bit about that, I think, over the course of the year too. What's the post endpoint era of managed services, and what does that look like? So yeah, you caught me a little off guard, but all sorts of good stuff that we'll be zeroing in on, and not only on our website and in our monthly magazine, but at our events. We have a very full calendar of events coming up next year too.
Yeah, I know we're still finalizing a lot of those details. Is there any that we can talk about? Any locations that have been kind of finalized yet?
I mean, we could probably talk about like cities or locations. I don't know how final any of those are. And I would have to call that up.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about dates. I'm trying to remember the cities that I remember seeing there, but I think we were going to go to, we'll be in Chicago for sure, because we didn't get to do the Chicago show this year in person. So I imagine we'll be in Chicago next year. I think I also heard Dallas, if I remember correctly, at some point in the year.
Last I heard, it was either going to be Dallas or Houston, but we will definitely be in Texas.
Texas somewhere, cool.
We will definitely be, in fact, our first show of the year, our March show, I know, is in New Jersey, which doesn't narrow it down tremendously, but we're going to be someplace in New Jersey. I believe the plan is still to do one of our events in somewhere in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. Kind of zone. We'll be back in Southern California. Again, we do a lot of shows there. That I think that's going to be one of the last ones on the list. Who else? What am I forgetting? Because there will be
Charlotte. Did I see Charlotte on the list?
Could be Charlotte.
Maybe Charlotte.
Yeah. 6 cities in all, and then we'll be doing some virtual only events as well on business management, on security, on cloud computing. So events.channelpronetwork.com, folks. As these details get settled, that's where you'll see all the specifics.
Yeah, we don't have any of the shows for next year up on the site yet, but definitely check out that event site every now and then. And as we get them, as soon as we kind of have a final schedule with more specifics, we'll be adding those shows there so you can get all the details on those. There was a chance. We do have a couple of events left this year, Rich. We had what was going to be our show in the LA area, our in-person show. And we have an online only managed services event, I believe, coming up. But what happened with LA? Because we're not going to be in LA in person anymore, but we're still going to have a show. What happened there?
So, talk about transitional periods. We're still in this sort of weird zone where hosting live events is kind of a question mark, I think, for a lot of organizations. So I'm at a live in-person show with a pretty good sized crowd in Las Vegas this week. Last week, Datto decided that they had originally been planning to do their big event in person in Seattle, and they converted that to virtual only. You're seeing people kind of go both directions there. And as the folks who are most sort of day-to-day hands-on in terms of planning our events, we're kind of looking ahead to this Los Angeles event that we're doing on November 16th. It was like, local health regulations, labor, there were a lot of uncertainties, a lot of variables, a lot of question marks about that show. And so we decided that we're going to do, instead of doing that as a hybrid event, which is what we've been doing for most of our shows this year, where you can attend in person or attend online, we're just going to go online only with that. So we are still doing that show on November 16th. We're still going to be talking about the secrets to increasing your cloud margins, zero trust security, the new normal in managed services, and all these great things that we've been talking about at our events this year. We'll just be doing that online, and we have done all sorts of terrific events online. So I am confident that will be a fantastic experience for everyone who attends.
Yep, I think it will be. So, and folks, and now you can kind of be anywhere and you can attend that. So events.channelpronetwork.com, find a link to get to the registration there. Go register, go and be there on online. What day? That's November 16th, correct?
November 16th.
November 16th. Be there or be square. Can you be square anymore? Do the kids still use that expression?
I don't know. I'm not a kid, but I still use that expression.
Love it. Well, and speaking of shows, we got a lot of show ahead here. Lots of really cool stuff. So Kaseya is in the news. We're going to be talking about a couple stories from them. HP is going to be in the news. We're going to be talking about marriage. We'll have to see what that's all about. That sounds interesting. We recorded. We did this a little earlier because of the way timing worked out. But we recorded an interview with Gary Pica from True Method. So we're going to have that. That's a great interview. Really, really good stuff. You'll all want to stick around for that. So, Rich, without further ado, let's dive into the news. Kaseya on VSA ransomware attack. It's what?
It's embarrassing. You know what? So one of probably the biggest story of the year in managed services, right, is July 4th weekend. VSA, the RMM tool from Kaseya, is attacked by our evil. It's by ransomware. Kaseya was very quick actually to shut down the cloud based version of that. They blasted messages out to people who are using the on-premises version: get out, shut it down, stay out. But it was highly disruptive for a period of over a week. Basically, anyone who runs their business on the VSA RMM tool was without that tool. And so here we all are, those of us who are attending this ConnectIT Kaseya show in Las Vegas. It was kind of the 800-pound gorilla, the big elephant in the room. You can't sort of, if you're Fred Vicola, the CEO of Kaseya, you can't get up on stage and sort of not talk about that. And so he did, and he sort of took it on the chin. Basically, I think he said what kind of had to be said, which is that, look, Kaseya does everything in its power to prevent this kind of thing from happening, and it happened anyway, and it's embarrassing. And let's see if I can find that quote. Well, first of all, what he said was, it sucked, and it sucked for us, and it sucked for you, and no one's going to argue with that. But the specific quote about it being embarrassing, he said, it's embarrassing. It's our job to figure out how to live up to our commitments, and we let this group down, and we take that very seriously. Now, I am scheduled, as we record this, I'm about 2.5 hours away from an interview with Fred, and I will hopefully get an opportunity to dive into some of what they are doing to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again, or at least make it far, far less likely. I will say that they announced at the show one move they have made, and that is they have hired a new chief information security officer. His name, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right because I haven't met him yet, is Jason Minar. He was, up until very recently, an assistant special agent with the FBI in charge of cybercrime operations. And more specifically, he was a key member of the response team that worked with Kaseya on the VSA breach. And apparently, Fred Vicola, the CEO, I remember him telling me when I interviewed him back in July, Vicola back in July, he said that, the FBI team really, really knows its stuff. Like, we didn't have to teach them, who an MSP is or what an RMM. So he was kind of impressed by that. And he went out and he hired one of those guys. So now he has a very recently ex-FBI agent with a lot of cybercrime experience on his executive team. I will be interested to learn more about, what they are planning to do next, specifically now that they have that expertise in house to kind of prevent things like this from happening in the future. But it was according to Kaseya, they just near term direct financial impact, $12 to $14 million, and the implication was that's just the stuff that we can kind of get our hands around pretty easily. You start thinking about the longer term impact and reputational impact and all that. The cost to Kaseya itself will no doubt be greater than that. And there are a lot of people listening and watching right now who had some financial impact as a result of that as well. And last thing to point out, because I know that a few actually little details that they shared that I know people in the audience here will want to know. First of all, the Kaseya folks took pains to emphasize that while this sucked, and it sucked deeply for any MSP who was without their RMM tool for all that period of time, there were only 56 of their roughly 37,000 customers who actually got ransomed because the RMM tool was compromised. And
number that could have been much higher had they not reacted as fast as they did.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about that as a percentage, 56 out of 37,000, that is a testament to how quickly they were able to kind of shut things down. For those 56 people, Kaseya did manage to get its hands on a decryption key. Now there were reports in the media that they got that key because they paid the ransom. And on stage yesterday, Fred absolutely insisted we did not pay a dime in ransom. Anything you read that said we did is bad reporting. It didn't happen. He didn't get into details, but he strongly implied that they were working with some sort of third-party organization. Couldn't tell you anything more than that, how shadowy or above board this group was, but they got assistance from somebody to get a hold of that key. And one of the little details, because another thing you may have read in the media was that the people who did get that key from Kaseya were required to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And there were some folks who thought that this was Kaseya kind of trying to, tamp down attention and cover its behind a little bit by making people promise not to talk about it. And according to Fred on stage yesterday, they did that because they were required to do it by this entity, whoever it was, who got them the key. Basically, they used some magical techniques to get a hold of this key. And they didn't want to reveal those to anybody. And I guess there might be some clues, if you got the key. And so they would not share the key with anyone who didn't sign this non-disclosure agreement. That's why that was done, apparently. So
hence probably illegal techniques.
Yeah, could be, right?
That was my thinking.
One of the things Fred said in his keynote, and again, without elaborating, was just that from his perch, in the CEO's chair, dealing with the FBI and who knows who else to get the key and so on. He said he had an opportunity to witness some real James Bond stuff, some stuff he didn't know was possible that people did, and it was a very interesting experience.
Well, maybe he'll elaborate on that more, but probably not. Anyway, didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going.
No. I mean, the other thing that I will get into a little bit with him today, because I thought this was interesting, and this follows up on the conversation I had with him in July as well, where you could see him in real time. We spoke on the 4th of July, like 48 hours after the attack began. And you could imagine he was up to his eyeballs in, talking to the media and working on with the FBI and with the employees and so on. But he was already kind of thinking about, the larger implications of living in a world in which this kind of thing can happen, is happening every day. And he did talk quite a bit during his keynote about what he called, the existential threat to our way of life posed by cybercrime. And the fact that it is immensely profitable for the people who do it. The penalties are light. You walk into a bank and rob a bank, and you're going to go away. If you get caught, you're going to go away for a long time. If you get caught in the act of perpetrating ransomware, the penalty compared to bank robbery relatively light, even if you steal more money via ransomware. There are, law enforcement resources, including this, new chief information security officer at Kaseya, who are working on this problem every day. Not enough. So I mean, basically, this is an enormous issue. It's probably, I would argue it's not getting the kind of attention. It's getting more attention certainly than it did a year ago from government, state, local, federal, but it's not getting enough given the scale of the problem. And so it's a huge problem that's going to remain a huge problem. And I will be curious to maybe hear some more thoughts from him about who needs to step, because there are things Kaseya can do to protect its products and its partners, but that bigger problem that he was talking about and that we're all aware of, Kaseya isn't going to fix that. And Kaseya and ConnectWise and Datto collaborating isn't going to fix that. So, what are his thoughts basically on what needs to happen? And if I get an opportunity, I don't know if I will, to speak with Jason Minar, I'll be very curious to get his perspective on that, because up until very recently, he was dealing with this from the FBI side of the problem. And so he has an interesting perspective on it that I hope to get today.
Yeah, and hopefully by the time we have the next podcast, we can hear a little bit about that, because I'm very curious to see what he's going to say. So very cool stuff. It's really cool. I don't have a whole lot more to add. I mean, you really covered everything, and I think the more interesting parts of the keynote that he had. But I will say that it was refreshing to see them address it in such a blunt and specific way. And while it wasn't a good thing for sure, it just goes to show you that no company, no matter the size, is no matter what you do, you're always still at risk. It can happen to anybody, and it probably inevitably will happen to everybody at some point.
No, I mean, I agree. And he kind of made that point during his keynote as well yesterday, which is, there are a lot of tools that have been compromised, and we probably don't know about it because the victims haven't been as public about it as Kaseya was, for example. And anyone who hasn't been, targeted or victimized yet, give it time in the next 18 months, 2 years, right? It's very large number of adversaries who are very determined to do a lot of damage.
That there are. So Kaseya has kind of addressed what's happening, but now they're also talking about some stuff that they are doing now, and what they'll be doing in the year ahead. Do you want to talk about some of the highlights from that?
Yeah, and I'll just hit some highlights because Mike Puglia, their chief customer marketing officer, spoke for about an hour yesterday about various things on the roadmap for the next 12 months. And as he said, I would need 5 hours to tell you about all of this. I'll just tell you about some, and I'm even just going to, narrow it down to a few things within that. And I'll begin with something called Kaseya One. And the Kaseya folks didn't say that this is embarrassing too, but they kind of joked about it a little bit. I had to go back and dig after the keynotes yesterday to kind of look this up. The first time that I wrote about Kaseya One, Matt, was in May of 2018. And that was when they first announced that they were going to be doing this. And they said, Q3, Q4, 2018, we're going to roll this thing out.
And Rich, what are you willing to bet that in the show we did that week or around there, we totally picked on them for using one in the
you know what? You're probably right. We should go look that up. We should totally go look that up.
So we won't beat a dead horse. We probably already picked on them. We'll just let it ride.
Folks, the wait is just about over, and this time it's for real. Everybody said, no, we really mean it now. They're in beta with this product right now. They expect that it'll go GA in December or maybe early January. There's some end of year stuff that they're going to be rolling out as well. They don't want Kaseya One to sort of interfere with that. So at the absolute latest, they said, it'll just be after January. And what Kaseya One is basically is sort of a control plane, a kind of unifying plane for all of the different solutions and applications that Kaseya has. They have an RMM tool and a PSA. They have the IT Glue documentation product. They've got BDR and security. And just as, if you are in Microsoft 365, one sign-on, you hop back and forth between the different components. If you are using what they call the IT Complete platform, this whole kind of portfolio of products from Kaseya, you ought to be able to hop around from one to the other without having to log in over and over again. That's a big part of what Kaseya One will do. The other thing it will do, there's a portal component to it as well that will provide a Kaseya-wise perspective on your licenses, on your invoices, on everything that you're doing for any and all of the Kaseya products that you have all in one place. So you're not kind of going back and forth between different portals to figure all that stuff out as well. And so it's in beta now. It will be out there and available to everybody. And in fact, there are little bits and pieces of it apparently that are already starting to pop up in the products, but everybody will have all of it by the beginning of 2022. So there's that. For the VSA product, their RMM, they have a new patching engine coming up. They are saying it is, and this is a big number, they are saying it is at least 27 times faster than its predecessor. So you're going to see patches roll out significantly faster. You're going to see some management functionality for Microsoft Azure. So your virtual machines, load balancers, SQL instances. We've spoken, I know, before on the show about cloud management and how that figures more and more prominently in what our MSPs do, and how sort of the legacy RMM vendors need to, reflect that in their product more and more. Here's an example of one of those vendors incorporating some cloud management functionality into the RMM tool. And you're going to see more cloud in other Kaseya products as well. Compliance Manager, their tool for assessing how well an end user is complying with regulations like HIPAA and CMMC and GDPR. That has had, it has today, obviously, visibility across an on-premises infrastructure. They're adding visibility into Azure, Amazon Web Services, Google Workspace, et cetera. So you're getting a much more complete picture of the compliance posture of your customer. Similarly, Network Detective, that is from Kaseya's Rapid Fire Tools unit. You may remember, Matt, that last year, actually, we gave Rapid Fire Tools one of our coveted All-Star Awards because they added some functionality to Network Detective, which is a vulnerability assessment tool. They added some functionality that would allow you to assess the vulnerability of Microsoft 365 environments, which was something that people needed a lot in the work from home era at that point in time. They're now going to add Microsoft Azure to Network Detective. You're going to be able to assess the vulnerabilities in that environment along with the Microsoft 365 piece. And then a bunch of other things around Rocket Cyber, their managed SOC service, and IT Glue. And we won't get into all that, but there's more cloud security, more cloud management, faster patching in VSA, and Kaseya One. If you've been waiting for it, the wait is nearly over.
And what a wait it's been. I've noticed in here too, we talk a little bit about a lot of the Kaseya competitors are all like, there's a lot of activity right now into cloud management. Do you think that like with Kaseya and Datto Enable all kind of really starting to focus on that, is that going to push a lot of the startups that are trying to solve that problem out, or do you think there's going to be room for that?
I mean, that is one of those questions that I'm most fascinated by right now in the industry. One of the things I'm most interested in. I don't know the answer to that, but the way I kind of think about it is, the Enables and Dattos and Kaseyas are competing with the Augments and Skykicks and Jump Clouds and these sort of born in the cloud management tools. The startups are much smaller and not nearly as well known or well capitalized. But cloud management they're 100% focused on that task, and they know that very, very well. And because they're startups and they're smaller and they're younger, they are maybe nimbler than some of these big companies that have some sunk costs and some legacy workloads and so on that they have to contend with going forward. But those companies have the all the advantages I just implied in terms of having the name recognition, the big partner base. It's not a small deal, to either bring on a new tool or switch away from an old tool. That plenty of money to draw on to invest in R&D around adding cloud management to their solution. So it has felt to me for a while as if there's this race underway between the startups and the big names. And I don't know how it comes out exactly, but I definitely see more momentum, more actual sort of facts on the ground and real features and functions joining some of those legacy products now. Whereas a year ago at this time, even, I think they were talking about it more than they were actually updating their products to do these things.
Very interesting. Now, I also noticed too, a lot of the cloud management solutions that they're offering now are very Azure heavy. Are they going to be doing that stuff for AWS and other public cloud infrastructure in the future, or are they going to be in the Azure camp?
I think it will be overwhelmingly in the Microsoft cloud, Azure and Microsoft 365. And I mean, you heard me sort of mention Google Workspace and AWS when I was talking about what Kaseya has coming. And so it's not as if any of these companies is, ignoring the other clouds. But I mean, I know at Datto, I remember talking with the folks over there, and they're obviously in contact with thousands and thousands of MSPs all the time, and they really sort of feel that they are meeting the overwhelming majority of needs out there if they focus on, that there's stuff going on outside Azure and Microsoft 365, but it doesn't feel like there's so much of it that they're really sort of leaving MSPs hanging if they don't support those clouds. So I think for a while, you're going to see most of the management attention and security attention, backup, continuity, et cetera, focused on those Microsoft cloud products.
Very interesting. Well, it's a lot of stuff. We're going to link, folks. We put links to everything that we're talking about in the show notes for the episode. So if you're an audio listener and you are on your phone, if you open up your app, you might see all the links in your app if you go into the show there. If you're like on an iPhone, you'll have to go to the ChannelProNetwork.com website, find the episode page for episode 203. Got all the links in there, and we're just kind of scratching the surface. There's a lot more in here with a lot of links to go and learn other things. So go and check that out. If you're on YouTube watching, go ahead and open up the show description area, and we'll put links all right there for you. Nice and convenient. That way you can kind of preview and read more as we kind of go through these different stories. Eddie, I know you're still at the Kaseya show. Any other interesting things that you're going to talk about that you've learned that you haven't written about yet?
Well, I know I will be writing about more from the show, but that'll be based on the conversation with Fred Ricola that's coming up. And like I said, hopefully the security officer as well. That is the main thing coming up. And then there was some product news from Connect Booster that was announced at the show today, and I'll be writing about that as well. We might wind up talking about that next week.
Awesome stuff. ChannelProNetwork.com, folks. Check out the site each and every day. That way you can be at the forefront of all of this stuff. But of course, we'll talk about it here on the show next week as well. So Rich, we got another story. HP's in the news. They're doing something in conferencing and collaboration.
And it's not just something, Matt, it's something kind of big. I mean, honestly, and I mean big just in terms of the scale of what they were kind of rolling out. If they had announced a fraction of what we're going to kind of talk about here, you would have said, well, that's good. I mean, everybody is collaborating, more in a hybrid kinds of settings, people in the office and at home and on the go and so on. You would expect companies like HP to be rolling out products to accommodate that need. But they didn't just roll out products to accommodate that need. They rolled out a really big set of products all at once to address that need. And it's a whole new product line, a whole new portfolio that they're calling HP Presence. It is specifically designed to accommodate the needs of hybrid workforces. So there are two basically big buckets of technology that they rolled out. One that you are to use in a conference room, and other technologies that they will be embedding in their PCs, their laptops and desktops and all-in-ones that you can use at home and on the go. All of that is designed to kind of seamlessly integrate and to make sure that people, regardless of where they are in a room, whether they are in the room or remote, the overriding goal is to make sure that everybody feels like they are equally seen, equally heard, equally empowered to communicate. And so how do you do this? Well, so first of all, let's look at the conference room side of HP Presence. It's all kind of built around a new mini PC product that they're calling the Presence Mini Conferencing PC, little compact purpose-built device. There's a new 4K camera that they're introducing. There's a new conference hub, one of those devices, in the middle of the table in a conference room that you might use to do speakerphone kinds of stuff. New microphones, a new sound bar. The microphones and the sound bar are designed to make sure that the people in the room can hear the the remote people just as easily and at the same volume as the people who are in the room, and vice versa. If you are participating in the meeting at home and somebody is, distant from a microphone or speaking quietly, you're not going to be putting your head up to the PC to hear. Everybody should be able to hear at the same volume, basically. There is some interesting technology that they're calling meeting ready. And if it works as they say, the idea is when the people who are going to be doing the meeting from in the conference room walk into the conference room, the technology there, is has motion detection capabilities. It sees that they're there and it wakes all the stuff up in the room so that you don't have this phenomenon of spending the first 5-10 minutes of the meeting turning everything on and getting everything connected. If you are going to be connecting from that room to a Zoom or a Teams session, everything just kind of wakes up for you. And basically all you have to do is use this touchscreen control panel that is also part of Presence, tap a button, and everybody is connected with that one tap. If you need to use a platform other than Zoom or Teams, they have what they call guest mode, and you connect your PC to that control panel, and very quickly and easily, they say, you'll be able to use any other kind of unified communication tool out there. And then there are all sorts of interesting little technologies that they've built into both the conference room and the PC portions of this to kind of compensate for some of the things that we're all used to compensating for the hard way in Zoom and team meetings. And so the technologies basically that will automatically follow. If you're in the conference room and you get up on your feet and you're moving around a little bit, the camera will track you so that the people watching at home don't see you kind of step in and out of the frame. Similar thing happens if you're participating from home. If you don't want to have to sit, you don't want to be chained to your chair in front of a PC for an extended period of time. You get on your feet and move around a little bit. Your camera will track you. People will see you framed up at all times. If you are participating from home and you don't want to, you're moving around, or you don't want to have to lean into your PC to be heard, there's technology that will sort of dynamically level the volume so that if you move away from the microphone a little bit, it'll pick up the gain. If you get closer, it'll lower it down so that everything kind of stays even for anyone who is listening to you. And this, I think we would all appreciate, there's something in that PC component of Presence that they call scene detection functionality. And basically it will kind of look around at the lighting conditions, it will get a sense for the sound conditions and automatically adjust. So you don't have to do what I did right before we started recording this, which is like figure out where do I need to sit so that the lighting is okay and people are going to be able to see me and I'm not in shadow and so on. It'll kind of deal with that for you on its own. I could go on and on, Matt. It's really quite a sprawling set of technologies. And it all goes, directly to all of the kind of headaches that we've all experienced in the last year around collaborating online when we're not all doing it physically in the same place.
So yeah, interesting. There's a lot here to unpack, and one thing that when I first started reading the story, I was like, wait, are they like launching a competitor to Zoom? But that's not what this is. This is hardware and maybe some software that helps facilitate the quality of conference calls over other platforms, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. They're not getting into the collaboration software, the video conferencing, unified communications business at all. This is just designed to make running meetings on Zoom, Teams, or whatever else easier.
That's cool. So I have a couple of questions because I'm interested in this. I'm interested in this like touchscreen control PC that they say it uses. Does that initiate the Zoom call or the Teams call, or does the user still? I would imagine the user would still have to plug in their thing. No.
I'm a little bit fuzzy on how there is the conferencing PC, which is sort of the brains of everything that's happening in the conference room. And then there's the separate thing that they call HP Presence Control, and there's a different version of it called Control Plus. And that's sort of the meeting room controller interface. And you can adjust the sound and the audio and the microphone and so on. But you can also, as I understand it, initiate or terminate a conference from that panel. And I believe it's a one tap thing. Okay, I'm ready to go. turn on Zoom, turn on Teams. But yeah, I'm a little fuzzy on how it knows which meeting it's connecting with.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And so they've got a sound bar. They've got microphones. I imagine if it's a big room, you have to add more microphones. That's probably why they have that, and it figures all that out, which is really cool, by the way. So I get the conference room side of it. That's neat. I'm a little fuzzy on what they're doing for the home user. So you said this is technology that's going to be built into HP notebooks, right? So do you have to buy a new notebook in order to have this presence thing? Or is it just a software install? Does it work with other notebooks? Like what if somebody doesn't have an HP notebook? What if somebody uses a Lenovo? Does it work with that or no?
I'm pretty sure, well, this is maybe more speculative than being pretty sure, but I'm pretty sure it will not work on a Lenovo or anyone else's technology. I think you're going to need to have an HP endpoint in order to take advantage of the presence technology. Right now, basically, it will only work with very specific devices. And I'm trying to look up right now, the two models that will first get this HP presence technology are the HP Elite Dragonfly Max notebook and the HP Elite One 800 all-in-one. And that in November, basically, there will be some kind of a firmware update or some sort of an update for those two specific devices that will allow them to take advantage of the scene detection and the auto framing and the dynamic voice leveling and all those kinds of things that I was talking about before. All they have basically said beyond that is there will be support for additional PCs. I'm sure more from the commercial side of their lineup coming later on. But I don't know if there's going to be some sort of download that any HP user will be able to put on any HP device, or if really HP is going to have to work its way through the PC portfolio and very specifically enable this device and then that device.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the endpoint needs, right? Because I would imagine that the conference room solution is what's handling all of the scene detection, right? And what video to transmit back. So I'd imagine that's all in the room. So what else would the endpoint use to, I could be wrong on that, by the way, but that's like, I don't see why the endpoint would manage scene detection. That would be the cameras and stuff in the room, in my thinking. And like what microphones and the audio, but I guess the endpoint could get, as you were saying, voice leveling. So if you move back and forth, it would do that. Although I think a lot of the clients kind of do that already. No, so I'm trying to think what is the endpoint doing that's new?
So the scene detection, for example, is something that is based on input from the camera on the endpoint, right?
Oh, that's it. Okay, so that's it. So the remote user's camera scene is adjusting things based on their lighting, right?
Exactly.
Okay, that would be at the endpoint. So that's one
right.
thing, but that's not huge, right? Or is that huge? I don't know. Is that huge?
Of all the different features that they talked about on the end user side, that was the one that most jumped out at me personally. Because it is such a pain in the neck to to adjust lighting and get everything sort of set up so that people can see you and you can hear them. And so, I mean, supposedly this takes a lot of that headache out of your hands, and the technology will do a lot of that for you. So that actually, to me, if it works the way they say it does, that would be pretty cool. I don't know. I mean, what you just said, that maybe some of that voice leveling technology is already out there. I don't know if that's true or not. If it is, then obviously that's not as big a deal. I know that I don't think the camera I'm using right now, or the software I'm using right now, will automatically track me. If I slide off to my left, you won't be able to see me anymore. And to some degree, that ceases to be a problem with this HP presence technology.
Okay, so the end user will also be able to have that stuff too. So if they
yes.
are like standing at a whiteboard or whatever, the camera will track them and zoom in or whatever. Okay, that's cool.
Correct.
This is cool. This is cool stuff. Now, they're not alone in doing conference room solutions like this, though. I mean, I know Jabra, they put out a whole bunch of stuff a year or two ago that had some of these similar features, maybe not all of them. Who else does this stuff?
Poly We've had some folks from Poly with us on the podcast not that too long before. So I mean, most of the names you would think about in terms of conference room technology do a lot of this kind of stuff. I don't know. I couldn't do a comparison for you, device by device, feature by feature. Where HP maybe has a little bit of an edge over a Poly or a Jabra is that they make the PCs too. And so maybe that allows them to do things on the remote user side that would be a little bit harder for the other companies. But I don't know. I mean, Poly can upload some software to your laptop and maybe do exactly the same kind of scene detection, voice leveling, tracking, etc.
Yeah, I do. A lot of the conference room solutions out there really do focus on the in-room experience and how that's maybe broadcast out, but usually not the other way in. So they might have some advantage there about being able to, build the PCs. I'm still not really sure what they're building into the computer that makes it kind of specific, but maybe you got to have a big high-res cam and you got to have maybe specific microphones or something. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. So I'm sure we'll revisit the story as some of these products ship and we get a sense of actually how it works. So cool stuff, folks. Check it out. It looks really interesting, everyone. So go hit the show sheet for 203 and check out this article and read about this because it's pretty cool stuff. That's going to wrap up news for the week, Rich. But we're gonna settle in and we're gonna talk about holy matrimony, Rich. What's going on in the space of marriage? Are you looking to get married, or what's going on?
So here's the real deal behind the story, and what we're going to be talking about is a story that ran in the October issue of our monthly magazine at ChannelPro about husband and wife teams in the channel. And I remember exactly when the idea for this story kind of popped into my head. I was at a ConnectWise show in June, and I ran into two people well, Lisa and Eric Shore. Lisa Shore has been on the podcast multiple times. She has spoken at our events quite recently, as a matter of fact. And I was chatting with them at this show in June, and I was just kind of thinking to myself, because they are a husband and wife team, a husband and wife MSP. And I was just thinking, I always enjoy being with them because they enjoy being with each other so much. And, and that it doesn't strike me as just an easy thing. Like a natural, for a husband and wife team to be working together in this pressure cooker kind of environment all day long and really kind of enjoy it and do it successfully. I would think there are some do's and don'ts, some lessons that you learn. And I thought, because there are plenty of other husband and wife teams out there in the channel and other people out there who might be thinking about going into business together with their spouse. What are some of the secrets to doing that successfully? And so we spoke to several couples that we know out there, including Dina and Jason Pizzo. Dina and Jason have been on the cover of the magazine. Jason spoke at one of our events in 2020. We know them both well. They spoke about the importance of sort of learning your lane, as they put it, which is kind of figuring out what your role is at the business versus that of your spouse and kind of respecting that. In their case, in their experience, not doing exactly the same thing at the same time all the time has been actually kind of helpful. Understanding who's best at what, who's going to do what, and respecting that has been kind of important. For Eric and Lisa Shore, one of the lessons that they kind of learned is not just knowing who's in what lane, but really kind of respecting the importance of that lane. When Lisa first joined the company, Eric created the company, I think when he was still in college. And after they got married, Lisa became a part of that company. And she has specialized from the beginning in business development and marketing and in sales and so on. And none of that really just sort of figured in Eric's mind initially as something that was important. And so he focused his time on the technical stuff, which is where he had been focused on before. And it was a little bit frustrating for Lisa to kind of not get his attention, his assistance, his input on some of what she was doing. Sort of, learning to kind of respect one another and what you're doing and how you're contributing and make time for each other in that way was something that was really important and helpful for them. Inevitably, you are not going to agree about everything. There are going to be disagreements. Every couple we spoke to said, do not have those disagreements in public. Do not have those in front of your employees. You're going to want to do that in private. And you're going to want to do that in private on work time in the office, because another thing that these couples agreed on basically was you really, you don't want to take the job home with you. You've got to maintain work-life balance, which is difficult for anybody who is listening to or watching the show right now. But obviously, if you work together with your spouse, it's harder. So sort of setting some ground rules about what you do and don't talk about at home with respect to business, so that there is some of that separation, is important as well. But I'm sort of focusing on challenges, but the couples we spoke to also kind of pointed out there are a lot of perks. There are a lot of really nice things about working with your significant other on the job, beginning with the fact that there's no one you could sort of partner with in a business venture and have more trust in than that person, one hopes, and that is a great feeling to have. No one you can be more, open and honest with than your spouse, and no one who is going to be more willing and able to sort of pick up the slack if you need help. There is always that other person there to step in, who knows they need to step in and can step in when you need that kind of assistance. And then, in some ways, maybe the ultimate sort of gratification that some of these couples have experienced is you get to build something together. You get to kind of show, model for your children what it is to be a successfully functioning couple, and then maybe hand that business off to your kids. And what a sense of accomplishment that would be.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that the people can do this. I think it would be very difficult. Okay, and I want to hear from the audience. If you are in, if you run an MSP or an IT business, and you run it in cooperation with your spouse, first, if you're on YouTube, smash that like button, hit the like button, and leave a comment and tell us what you see are the challenges and upsides to that. Like, how does that work for you? How long have you been doing it? I want to hear that. And if you're listening on audio, send us an email, podcast@channelpronetworks.com. I want to hear more about this, because I think it would be really hard. They did a good job outlining some of the risks, but where I see some risk is it would be really difficult to have a disagreement at work and not take it home, right? Because if you're mad at your coworker, right, you have to go home and then live with them. That seems like it could be a very, very difficult thing to do, especially during times of conflict. I also see some real risk too, as as we know, not all relationships work out in the long run. And if you employ people and you have a rift in your marriage and you end up splitting, well, that probably is going to split the business too. Did anybody talk about what happens in those scenarios?
You know what? It's an interesting angle on the story you bring up that we did not cover in this piece, because what we did, we said, well, who do we know? Who are the couples we know in the channel? And we spoke with a number of them. They obviously have figured this stuff out. They've avoided the pitfalls and the mines and the minefield. But I'm sure there are other people out there who tried it and it didn't work, and they needed to kind of go, do different things. It would be interesting to hear from some of those folks as well.
Yeah. So, folks, if you have tried this and failed, absolutely, again, go to YouTube, comment there, or send us an email, podcast@channelpro.com. Tell us what happened, what went wrong, what you learned from it, and what advice you might have to help others that are in that position avoid the same fate. Because you're right, Rich, these are the folks who have made it work, and that takes and that's cool, but that is only one side. And I have to imagine that this works less than it fails, is just from my viewpoint.
And I don't know. I would be really, really interested to get a vote on that. So I second your suggestion that anyone listening right now give us a shout if they have any experience with this or know people who have been through this. I would be curious to know if the people we spoke to for that article are the exception to the rule, or if there are other people out there who a large number of other couples out there who have figured it out.
Yeah, and of course, it's always good. It's always good that to mention Eric and Lisa Short, because they're the nicest people in the world. So it's always cool when they show up in an article or at an event.
I like them both a lot. And, Lisa was speaking at our conference. She's spoken at a number of our conferences this year. And I'm always glad that Eric comes to those shows with her because I get to see them both. And yeah, great folks.
Yeah, and it was funny, Rich, in episode 200, when we were taking questions from some former guests, one of them asked if there was anything on the show that ever happened that was like embarrassing or something to that effect. And I didn't think about it at the time because we were kind of thinking about these on the fly. But Lisa has the distinct honor of being the interview that never, how do I put this? We recorded an entire interview with Lisa Shore the first time we had her on. And it was like an amazing interview. It was fun. It was dynamic. She said a lot of great things. And we get to the end of the interview and we wrap it up. And then we realize that we didn't record it.
Yep. Yeah.
So she is. So that was the moment. But she was really cool. Like we just rescheduled with her and we did it again. I think the first cut of that interview was a little bit better, in my opinion. But the second one was also great. But what a good sport she was that she decided to stick with it and do it again. And we've had her on several times since then. So she's an awesome lady.
I totally agreed. And yeah, I remember the dread when I had to tell her that phenomenal conversation we kind of forgot to record it. And she was such a good sport about that. She came back on, gave us another half hour of her time and did it with us again. And it was a great conversation. But yeah, that first one was I've only had that experience one other time since I've been at ChannelPro, and it wasn't on a podcast. I just remember I was years ago now, I was interviewing an executive at Cinex. It was an IoT related conversation, and man alive, I wish I could remember the guy's name. But it was probably the single best half-hour interview on IoT I have ever conducted, Matt. And he was just so interesting and like just, explaining everything in this wonderful way. And he was hyper articulate. And we wrapped up the conversation. I was thinking, that is awesome. And I realized I didn't record any of it. And I wasn't taking, notes except for a little.
Oh, no.
Yeah, just terrible.
But at least you had it in your head, right? Were you still able to kind of put something together from it, or?
I was able to put something together about it, and I was bailed out. And credit where it's due, the Cinex PR team had somebody on that call with me, and so I had to contact her and say, "Hi, Rich Freeman, professional idiot. I did not record that interview." And she said, "Don't worry, I was taking very detailed notes. I'll share my notes with you." And so, thank goodness. But yeah, I did get an article out. It just would have been better if I had actually had that interview to draw on.
Oh, that's a good story. Yeah, that kind of stuff happens. Fortunately, we have not forgotten to record any other interviews since, which is good. So probably won't happen again. Learned our lesson, Rich. But kudos to her, and awesome stuff. Well, hopefully we'll get her back again someday. She hasn't been on in a while, so we will check in with her someday soon. Anything else to talk about the marriage article? I do want to hear from you folks. So absolutely reach out to us if you're in this dynamic, or if you tried this and failed. We totally want to hear from you and kind of get the other side of it. So reach out. Really important stuff. Or maybe we'll even have you on the show to talk about it. That would be an interesting one. We could do we won't necessarily have both of them on. That would be bad. This is not marriage counseling or anything, but be cool to maybe get a round table going of people who have tried and failed.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. With that, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to play the interview that we recorded with Gary Pica a little bit earlier today. Now, Rich is not magic. He was in a different location when we recorded this. He was actually inside of a glass booth pod thing that they had on the show floor of the Kaseya event. So he's in there with Gary. It's a few points. It does get a little noisy because they were giving away money or something. Well, you'll see that. And the connection there on that laptop, it was doing updates and weird things throughout the interview. So the audio, I think we lost the audio for a few seconds here or there. So you're not going crazy if it kind of goes silent for a minute, but it's a really great interview. You won't want to miss it. And we'll play that now. We'll be right back. And welcome back to part 2 here of this episode of ChannelPro Weekly. As we look back at the last few years, at the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, one thing becomes clear. It's been an engine of change, for the better or worse. One area it's had significant impact is on the managed services landscape. Now, here to talk about that and how it's reflected in the advice he offers is managed services pioneer Gary Pica of True Methods, which is a coaching, peer, and accountability firm aimed at helping IT solution providers reach their full potential. Welcome, Gary.
Hey, how are you? Nice to be here.
Good. It's good to finally have you on a regular episode. This is actually not our first interview that we've done with you. For those who attended one of our online events last year, Rich, I don't remember which one it was. We did kind of like a live interview with Gary, and now we got him on the show. So that's great. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Really happy to be here.
Great. So Gary, why don't you take a couple minutes? I'm sure a lot of people in the industry know who you are. You have a big history, and you're kind of the pioneer of a lot of the methods and things that managed services providers use. But for those who may not be familiar with you, tell us a little about you and what you do.
Yeah, so I've been in the IT industry for 25 years. I've owned and operated two high-performing MSPs, which I was able to exit both of those. And for the past over a decade at True Methods, we help MSPs and MSP entrepreneurs fill their potential with our online training. We have over 200 MSPs in our peer group, and with our software MyIT process for VCIO. So really trying to, my passion is helping MSP entrepreneurs really get to where they want to get to in life. And just as importantly, help their team get there. Because almost every MSP that we work with, if you ask them, do you have some people in your business that have been with you that you really care about how it turns out for them? They almost always say yes.
So you said a moment ago when we were off camera that you're the one that kind of stuck around, right? So what was it like in the early days when you were kind of going through these processes and kind of, did you realize you were kind of setting like the stage for all managed service providers, or for managed services in general, but for how the IT channel was going to work?
Yeah, so not in the beginning. What I was doing was making a lot of mistakes. I was one of Kaseya's first customers. And kind of what people know now as the True Methods framework or Peaconomics, I learned it by, making decisions about how we priced and how we went to market. And then the results didn't come. So a lot of fits and starts and lessons, but then when we started to figure it out, we were off to the races. And I didn't really realize, I had not gone ever an industry event. And then I joined a peer group, the True Profit group. And when I went there, these were some of the top guys in the industry. And they, I realized then how far ahead of most everybody that we were. We had this head start. We were at that time Kaseya's largest MSP worldwide, and probably the most profitable. So at some point, I started to realize that we figured out some things that some other people didn't, and that's why once I sold the first business, my passion was to figure out, like a lot of people in the industry were struggling, like to try to figure out a way that we could put these business owners in a position to really understand a complex business in a way where they can make better decisions and, transform their business.
Wow. Now, as one of Kaseya's first customers, like, could you go back to Kaseya and still get their pricing from way back then? Because I bet you get a heck of a deal on that stuff now.
Yeah, no, well, I'll tell you what, it was the opposite. When I first bought Kaseya, this probably goes back to like 2002 or 3, like the very beginning. We were one of their first 20 customers, and they didn't understand the MSP market. So like it cost us like $180,000. Like that's a lot of money now, but back then it was tremendous, amount of money. So we had a couple year head start on everybody because there was only a few of us that really could afford to buy it until they figured that there weren't MSPs weren't going to be able to afford it, and they changed their licensing. And it wasn't until later that we were able to, use our leverage to drive those prices down.
Wow. So that is really interesting that it went, yeah. Normally it goes the other way around, as things get adopted, they get more expensive. That's really interesting. So Gary, I mean, you've been around a long time, and in order to be in the IT industry for as long as you've been, you've got to be adept to change. And that's kind of one of the things that we're going to talk about today is just how things have changed over the last couple of years. And you have been very good at keeping up with change, because that's kind of like required. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. So first, tell us a little bit about kind of like what you experienced during the start of the pandemic and kind of how that's affected you and in your life.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can speak from two perspectives. One, how we're helping our True Methods members. And then two, I also running True Methods, right? So I have my own business, to deal with. From the managed service standpoint, it meant that we had to really change what our program was. We went from, general biweekly, twice a month general webinars to a COVID webinar every single week. And we invited not only our members, but we opened it up to the whole industry. And we had probably 400 to 500 MSPs every week on that call, talking about, okay, here's the things you got to do now. Here's how you have to look at expenses. Here's how you have to, we called it protect, look beyond, and thrive. We were in that protect mode. And then once we got past that, then we started saying, okay, let's take our heads back and see what's changing and how do we make decisions now based on how companies are using technology different, how they're going to the cloud, what's happening with security. And, really kind of together, we guided each other through that. And to the point where coming out the other side, most of those MSPs would tell you they have a better business today than they had pre-pandemic, because they had to do a lot of things to really understand their business that they could get away with not doing it beforehand. So I feel like, I know for myself, I feel like I'm a better business person, and we got to do some of the best work of our careers during it.
Gary, so you were talking about Piconomics, right? I mean, so some of the principles that you've been teaching your True Methods clientele, they've been in place for a long, long time. But obviously the managed services landscape has changed a great deal in the last 18 months. Have the things that people need to do to be successful in managed services changed as well?
Yes and no. Let me tell you the no part. So really, if I say Piconomics, what that means is, it means, a professional services business like an MSP, to be able to look at their organization and put people in defined roles. We have 5 service delivery roles that we teach, and then understand the relationship between the roles in revenue and the roles in cost per seat. That principle is in place, and it's more important today because, security, there's more things labor-wise we need to do for every customer. We need to understand how to translate that, right? We're adding tools to our stack. We need to understand when we add those tools, how to protect our margins when we bundle those things. So from that standpoint, it hasn't changed. What's changed for MSPs, if you don't have that type of discipline, you still got to do professional services. You still got to do support. You still got to run your tool stack. You should be giving some advice. Now, you also have to devote more time to retaining and hiring people. You have to deal with a whole level of security issues that we didn't have to deal with. You have to do it in a way where your customers are doing business differently in terms of hybrid workforces, and many times the MSP is. So again, it's changed faster. It's become more complicated. So for MSPs that came into this with not a lot of what I call command over their business, it's really been difficult. For those that have been working right on having that command, we're seeing them literally sell more recurring revenue at a higher price than in the 25 years. Statistically, like we see the sales numbers for 200 MSPs that we work with.
And so, I mean, Fred Vicola, the CEO of Kaseya, we're attending the Kaseya event right now. He was actually
You mean my boss?
Your boss, yes. We should have probably pointed that out. That Kaseya acquired True Methods earlier this year. Right? Yeah.
I'll answer questions on that if you have it.
Yeah. But he was on stage yesterday during his keynote. He was kind of pointing out that a lot of those dynamics you were just mentioning have only gotten more intense. More tools, more requirements, more technology, so more kind of pressure on the MSP's bottom line. I mean, does that put a premium on cost management, operational efficiency? What are the specific things that MSPs have to get a little bit better at given those heightened pressures?
2 things. One, they have to be able to translate what they do to value in a way that they can increase their price. Most of the top MSPs just in the past 18 months, they've raised their average seat prices by $20 to $50. Like, that's not an easy thing to do. They're doing more, but they're able to translate it right, to their customers. The other thing is, there's 2 areas that are the original areas that MSPs we've always dealt with that are still problem children from efficiency standpoint. One is support desk. Many MSPs are not as efficient on support desk. So, each support desk resource doesn't manage enough seats, so it drives their cost up, right? When that happens, in normal times, they're a little less profitable. But right now, because we have to do all these other things, it has a negative impact. The other thing is professional services. They tend to be sloppy with professional services. And one professional service person should be able to, they should be able to bill, $20,000 to $25,000. We see people that have, $40,000 a month of professional services, and they have 3 or 4 people. Like, you can't have in those 2 areas, because you need those resources for technology alignment, governance, VCIO. You need to put them into these areas that customers absolutely have to have right now. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying the model is not as forgiving because it's changing so fast and we have so many more demands, and there's more to come.
I want to go back quickly. So you were kind of talking about technician productivity and the importance of sort of maximizing seats per tech.
Yep.
Huge topic, obviously. But give folks in the audience 1 or 2 tips maybe on increasing that number.
So in the long term, so we set a ratio. We want you to set a goal to have just from a support standpoint, 1 support engineer, and all your tickets and alerts go to your support board, be able to manage, let's say 500 seats. That gets your cost per seat on average, at $10 or below per seat just for support. So if you're below that, what are the things you can do? Long term, if you're more proactive, if you're doing alignment, if your customers are taking your recommendations, you'll drive down the number of tickets, per month per seat. But in the short term, it's really process oriented, right? So it is like seeing the tickets that come in. Do you know how to triage them? Do you know how many tickets on average is each person closing? And if they're closing 4 or 5 tickets instead of 10, 12, 14, you got to look at it every day to find out why, and that'll lead you to the process changes. And there's a handful that everybody finds around how they escalate, how much time they spend before they reload on a ticket, ticket touches, how many times a ticket gets touched. So in the short term, I'd say in 90 days, most inefficient MSPs can make a dramatic impact, and then longer term, even a more dramatic impact because now they have less noise in their business. They can be more proactive, and they start to spiral, in a positive direction.
Wait, Gary, everybody there is just eating up everything you're saying. They're cheering you on. That's pretty. Yeah. That's pretty amazing.
I think they're giving away some money right outside the booth here. So.
Well, that'll get everybody happy. So for our audio listeners, Gary and Rich are like inside of a glass booth. In the middle of an expo hall at this event, so there's lots of milling about going on out there.
Yeah, this is good. We're doing this, but it's fun because we're surrounded, here in the hall by people and games. It's great.
Have you had any gawkers yet? Like kind of people like press their nose against the glass to peek?
No one's knocked on the. Sometimes people will see me and come and knock on the door. They haven't done it yet.
Go ahead, Rich.
You were talking about something earlier that I want to go back to because it reminded me of a blog post you did within the last few months or so, where you were talking about to succeed now in managed services, you have to be a business person, not a technology person. So talk about the difference, obviously, and why that's so important today.
Yeah. So the difference is. Are you really know about your customer's technology, or do you really have a deep understanding of their business? Are you dealing with the decision makers, the people that set their strategic direction, that hold their budget? If you're not, you'll only be able to have limited value, because IT is supposed to be not an expense, but a functional area that they invest in. But if you're not dealing with the right people and you don't have the right relationship and the understanding of their business, you can't do that. It's always been important. It's the main thing I built my career on, is doing that VCIO role better than my competition. Because if we did that, everything else would follow. But what's happening now is, we sometimes had to, in the early days, we had to convince decision makers of why it was important. Now they already know. They're spending more on technology. They're more technology savvy. They know the risks. They know that they need to make it, get ROI on that technology. So now, they're demanding it. And as things move forward and more business services become appified, the MSP, is uniquely positioned, if they're doing this, to be able to offer more services as time goes on. And the best thing that can happen in a business is that, you can raise the average spend of your customer, because that additional recurring revenue has a much lower cost of acquisition, right? And because we're such a small cost to our customers, if they spend $4,000 a month with me as an MSP, they probably have $400,000 to $600,000. A month. They have $400,000 to $600,000 a month of other expenses. So whether they spend $4,000 with me or with additional services, 8 or 12 or 20,000, it's massive to us, but it really isn't that much different to them. And they want less vendors, not more. So I feel like for MSPs to get this, the next 5 to 7 years is going to be transformative. We're going to be the most important role, the most important vendor that they have, and the most valuable.
But one of the things that maybe makes it difficult for some MSPs to get into that VCIO role, to have those strategic conversations with the customers, is this whole ancient kind of conversation about working in the business and working on the business. Any kind of practical advice for how people can free up time for that work that's going to help them grow?
Boy, it's really hard. What I was saying here I got one more breakout, but I'm telling people, you need to change right now. You need to do a lot of things differently. You're not going to figure it out inside of the service. So you got to find ways. Like I read a lot of books. I read about the business planning process. I have a business planning coach. They can join a peer group. Ours are another one where we actually provide it. Like we get them to do their plans. They have quarterly meetings. We get them to have areas of focus. We pretty much hand it to them. So I would say if you've been in business for a while and you're unable to do that, probably nothing's going to change. Like if you're waiting for a day to come in where there's no problems and no tickets, like that clear the deck mentality, it's never going to happen. You're going to have to do something different. If you can't, find others that are out there, that know how to do it or have done it, and get some help, man. I wouldn't be where I am if I wouldn't have had coaches, peer groups, mentors, that have guided me. I wouldn't have figured it out by myself.
And quite honestly, attending events like this can be enormous.
Absolutely.
You had another blog post that I wanted to ask you about.
I'm happy you're reading my blog posts.
I enjoy your blog posts.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in fact, we'll link to that from the show notes for people. They should check it out. But you put two things together in there in the title of one of your blog posts that some people listening right now will think never belong together. You were talking about bad MRR. And I think most people figure all MRR is good. So what is bad MRR, and why and how should you get away from it?
Yeah, I love this topic. So one of the things when people come into our training program, we have a video that's called "Not All MRR is Good MRR," and we explain some of the concepts around it. But we have an evaluator where they put all of their customers, the MRR, their seats, and then we get them to figure out on average over some period of time, like the time they spend just from a support standpoint, to evaluate where they are with those clients. And what most MSPs find, because they don't understand their cost drivers, that they are getting 60 to 70% of their gross margins from the top third of their customers, and all the rest are dragging them down. So they feel this resistance in their business. And at first, when they do that and then do their seat price calculator and understand their cost, they're a little depressed in the beginning when they come to us. Like they realize how far off they are. But what I always tell them is, you can't fix something that you don't know. Now you're going to make decisions, and they put a plan together of putting people into categories. Who are the ones that we're not going to be able to fix and we can't afford to get rid of? We're going to leave them for later. Which are the customers we can go back and change our relationship, and be able to get them on, on the right path? And are there ones now that probably we'd be better off if we can afford to get rid of them now?
When I'm I'm guessing this is true for you as well. We're talking about things that have changed in the managed services landscape and that are, business concerns for MSPs right now. One of the top on the list in any conversation I have with MSPs these days is hiring and retention. I mean, the labor shortage is unbelievable right now out there. Any sort of thoughts, advice about tackling that problem?
Yeah, so this is a conversation with every one of our peer members right now, right? They're all dealing with it in some way. What I would say is the first thing you have to do is realize, again, this is why we need to raise our prices. It's another thing like security. You're going to have to spend more time and effort on both your culture and retaining your people, as well as how you attract and build a funnel of potential people that are out there. You can't decide now that you need someone and expect that you're going to start from scratch looking for that person and get them in the time frame that you want, right? So you're going to have to, have a process now around it. And the process is not posting something somewhere and getting a few interviews and hiring someone. Like that's just not, it's just not going to work. So you really have to think through. The other thing is, you got to see things further in advance. You have to know by each delivery area, hey, we're going to try to add this much recurring revenue. When that happens, we're going to lose our capacity on the support desk. And we're going to need a support person probably in 4 months. What can we start to do now to think about that ahead of time?
Gary, you mentioned resistance, and I wanted to ask you because human beings are generally stubborn and resist change. And you talk about how a lot of MSPs have problems like raising prices. What are some of the other areas that have changed as a result of everything that's been going on the last couple of years? And what areas has partners that you work with are resisting the change or trying to fight against it?
Yeah. So look, change is hard in life, and it's really hard in business. And not to be philosophical, but to give you the real answer I've learned in working with human beings that are, business leaders, for all these years, and learning about myself, is that it's really hard, man, to change your perspective. Like we tend to hold on so much to our beliefs, even when they're factually wrong, because we think it's maybe a reflection on us. So the people I've seen who've done the best are the ones that are being able to step back from it, to be self-aware and say, I don't want to discuss this issue like that I'm holding on to something because I'm not getting the results I want. So I'm going to look to where someone else has, and I'm going to take it whole, and I'm going to go after it. The people that can do that make a lot of progress. So it's not only business resistance, but it is like, one of my favorite books is called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And he talks about the only problem we all have in life is our upper limit problem. We have a certain amount of success or love or money that we think we're worthy. And it's based on our whole entire life. Like most of what I deal with business owners probably are things they're dragging from behind them long before they ever met me, right? Things that happened when they were young or with their family or other things. And if you aren't aware of that, you hit it and you create this resistance. And I've seen it. Business owners that start finally to have success, and every time they do, I call it the banana peel syndrome. They slip on a banana peel. They lose their best tech. They lose their best customer. They have some personal issue. And you think, oh, that's too bad. But then you see the pattern repeat over time. So part of this, the hard part of it is we only go as entrepreneurs as far as our expectations. And when you can remove that resistance, you can recognize the other resistance, tickets, time, process, that you have to deal with in your business. Does that make sense?
It does. And I wonder how many have actually slipped on a banana peel. Is that common in offices these days?
Yeah. They slip on a banana peel.
That becomes the business.
It probably comes from some cartoons that you and I might have saw when we were young, right?
One of the other kind of trends in the industry right now that's been going on for a while and is probably accelerating a little bit now is the rise of these bigger MSPs with, in some cases, a national footprint. Private equity money is flooding in. The whole work from home phenomenon has actually made it easier to serve a national clientele, to recruit coast to coast. Do you have any thoughts for people in the audience about where this is headed and what it implies for them and how they run their business?
Yeah, I do. So we're at the beginning of that, right? I sit on a couple private equity boards. I get a pretty good view into the money is just starting to get here. So I think we're in the first inning of the private equity, what will happen. We're all, not just those companies, but we're seeing super regionals, companies that have got above $15, $20 million. We also see a lot of MSPs, because we build a lot of them in our basement, that are above that 5 to 6 million area. And what all of them have in common is they're more professionally run. They have dedicated sales and marketing. So those MSPs that aren't in that category are going to continue to have a different level of competition, right? You have people that are now marketing professionally with professional salespeople at your client base. So you have to understand that now and make sure that you're going to have to run a really good shop. Because if they come in and ask questions about how things are done or about security that your customer can't answer, you're going to start to have some issues. So I think it just means we all need to get up on the wheel. Do I believe that there's no place for independent, MSPs 5 or 6 years from now? Absolutely not. I mean, there's too many SMBs with too many varying needs. But probably if you're smaller, you're going to have to pick a lane, and you're going to have to be really good at that lane.
And so specialization in a particular technology or a particular vertical,
or even a particular, niche, like, hey, this is the makeup. It could be a vertical. It could be, we see some people, specializing in, like right now around some of the things around the Microsoft stack because people need more collaboration. Or it could just be, listen, here's the band of the type of customers we're going to deal with. We're going to deal with customers that have between, 10 and 30 users who have most of their stuff in the cloud. And we're going to focus everything we do around them in a way that those bigger companies can't afford. As you get bigger, your average MRR, the minimum that you can spend with you, goes up. And that's going to continue for those big nationals and super regionals to go up. And it's going to leave a band of still some pretty profitable, business that will be there. But you're going to have to be a good MSP.
Matt, I've been monopolizing the conversation for a while here. Back to you.
Well, that's good. Actually, we're actually almost out of time, so we don't have a whole lot left. But Rich, I was going to say that we don't have a guest with us this week. So if Gary's got a couple of minutes, we could have a little bit of fun with him if he's up for it.
Yeah, I got time.
All right. So what I'd like to do is, Gary, you got a little taste of this when we did our last interview with you, but now we're going to dive in. We're going to play a little game with you that we call 5 questions. That's right. 5 questions this time with Mr. Gary.
I only have time for 4.
You only got time for 4. Well, we'll see how that goes now, won't we? So the way this works is Rich and I will make up 5 questions off the top of our head, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back and forth. These questions could be about anything and everything. Guaranteed they will be off topic. Guaranteed mine will be probably ridiculous. But no gotchas, nothing to embarrass you or anything like that, just to have a little fun and get to know you a little bit better. Are you up for it?
Absolutely, and you will not embarrass me. So you can go ahead. Permission to speak freely.
Challenge accepted. Rich, question number 1 to you, sir.
So we're in Las Vegas. What is your favorite casino game, or do you just not play?
I am not really a gambler. I have a better relationship with my money, right, than that, and I understand math. But if I do, because I live near Atlantic City, if I go there, I'll play a game called Let It Ride, because it's a game where the dealer can kind of help you. So you can, put a few bucks up there. You'll never win a lot, but you can play for a long time and have fun.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to switch gears away from Las Vegas, even though I'm curious to see if you have like a Las Vegas story that you're not supposed to talk about, because whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but you're not going to tell me if you do. So I'm going to go to pets. Do you have any pets, and what has been your favorite pet?
Okay, so that's a funny question, because I have more pets than probably I would like to. We have 3 dogs. We had 2, and my wife loves dogs. So now we have 3 dogs, a little one, a medium-sized one, and a big one. And so I love them, all, although probably our life revolves a little more around dogs than I would have than I maybe would have planned for. But so yeah, we're big into pets.
And what kind of dogs are they?
So the little one is a Maltese, and then there's a King Charles, and the new one is a Bernedoodle. It's a Bernese mountain dog and a poodle, Romeo, and he is absolutely the cutest and sweetest.
So small, medium, large. Was it like, I know this is question 4 or 2C or whatever, but did you start with a small one and then you got a big one and it was like a Goldilocks moment where like, you know what, we got to get one that's just right? Or what was the order of acquisition?
We did the 2 of the dogs. We didn't. One of them was my daughter's. We ended up with, and the other one we bought for my father-in-law. Who couldn't take care of it, and so we ended up, kind of inheriting 2 of the dogs. And then the last one was my wife, decided she wanted a bigger dog and went out and got the dog. So it's kind of the story over time is how they ended up with us, and we became a dog, kind of a dog orphanage.
Dog orphanage. Okay. Rich, question number 3 to you.
So none of us is doing a ton of travel these days, but we used to travel quite a bit. And everyone I ask this question of has that one thing, maybe it's more than one thing that they always take with them on the road. It's like non-essential, but I gotta have it with me to feel good on the road. Is there anything like that you just always bring with it?
Maybe the only thing I can say is when I travel, I like to have my Kindle. So I feel like when I get on a plane or I have some time or it gets stressful, I like to pull my Kindle out and be able to read the book. Like it lets me kind of regroup. And I like it to be that because, if I finish a book or something, I can go get one wherever I am. Yep.
Very cool. All right. Question number 4. If you could choose any island to live on, which island would it be?
Oh, that's an easy one. Kauai. We've been to Hawaii a few times with my family. Not been to a ton of islands, but I can't imagine there's many islands that could be more beautiful than that one. Although you've talked to the people there, a lot of people from California will go there and fall in love with it and move. And then usually within 2 or 3 years, they get rock fever and they end up moving back. But in theory, and my wife loves it there.
So cool. And that's a convenient one because you don't have to change your passport. So that works out well. All right, Rich, question number 5 to you.
Okay, so you've been an MSP. You are now an advisor to MSP.
I'm currently between MSPs.
Between MSPs. So let's cross those 2 job descriptions off the list. You can't be an MSP. You can't be an MSP consultant. What is the career that you wish you could pursue?
Or will pursue at some point? Yeah. So I have invested in the industry in some tech startups, companies like right there, SaaS Alerts, and I'm really interested in that. And I want to do things that instead of running a business like I have for all these years, right? I want to be able to use some of my skills in giving others perspective, on how they do that, right? And so I still love this, and I plan to be with Kaseya and be there with my peer members for for a long time. But I also enjoy helping other people, young people, and sharing so that like I had to figure out a lot of it on my own in the beginning and look hard for mentors and coaches. So I would like to help others, and a lot of them who I know and care about, be able to maybe be able to get there a little faster and have a little more fun doing it.
Well, that's awesome stuff. And unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to give a big thank you to Sir Mr. Gary Pica for joining us here on this episode. I hope you had a good time.
Awesome. It's always fun. I'd like to do it again.
Good. Oh, we'd love to absolutely have you back anytime you like. So big thanks to that. For those who want to learn more about True Methods, I'm sure they know how to find Kaseya, but if they want to learn more about True Methods or connect with you, Gary, what's the best way to do that?
Just go to www.truemethods.com, trumethods.com. Check out what we're doing. Talk to someone from my team. If you're an MSP, I will tell you that all of my team members have a deep understanding. And the first thing they'll do is they'll ask you some questions and they'll try to, share kind of what we've learned with working with thousands of MSPs.
Very cool stuff. Well, we'll put that URL in the show notes so people can find it. So folks, go check that out there. And with that, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, Rich and I are going to wrap up the show. We're going to have a little bit of fun at the end, and it'll be good. So you won't want to miss it. Stick around. We'll be right back. And we are back with part 3 of this episode, 203. Rich, amazing interview with Gary Pica. That guy is probably one of the smartest people, very business heavy, very articulate. He's very well spoken, far better than me, I should say. Any takeaways from there? I mean, we covered a lot of ground. What would you like to highlight?
Well, I'll just point out, I mean, the entire premise of the interview really was that we have seen enormous change in managed services, obviously in the last 18 months for a variety of reasons. And so, you know, what are the things that you need to be focused on as an MSP different, the things you need to be good at different? And it turns out that the answer is yes. And I won't recap what he was talking about, but it was great to get that truly expert perspective on what are the things that have changed a little bit and that you need to be especially proficient at these days. And I was very interested too, actually, I was glad we had time to get into the whole topic of bigger MSPs and private equity money and all of that, and what it means for the smaller companies out there. Because if there's anybody who would sort of understand and have advice on what to be thinking about, it's Gary. And I thought that was a very interesting part of the conversation too.
It was. I think my biggest takeaway is when he was talking about how there's no more being unorganized. There's no more being amateur if you're going to be a serious channel MSP or business. You've got to be professional. You've got to professionalize. You've got to work through all that stuff. I think that hits home because I think there still are a lot of smaller shops out there that are maybe a little scatter. I don't want to say scatterbrained. That's not really what's the word I'm looking for, Rich. But they're just not super professional or well thought out. And I think that the time's coming that they're going to have to be. So I thought that was interesting.
Right. Yeah, no, totally agreed. And I think anyone who is listening or watching right now, who is either in that phase of things or remembers that phase of things will identify with what you were just talking about. Because as an entrepreneur, that you definitely, you know, it's a scramble for a while, and it's just not easy, and it takes some time to learn how to develop a little bit more focus as you go along. But yeah, very, very important now.
Very important. And big thanks to Gary for being on. Always a joy to talk to him. Hopefully we will see him again in the future. So Rich, we don't have a guest. So I'm glad we did get to play a little bit of game with Gary Pica. So that was a little bit fun at the end. But we don't have a guest here on part 3, but I don't want to just end the show without talking about something, right?
Yeah.
That'd be kind of weird. So the time has come, Rich. We haven't done one of these in a long time, actually. Everyone knows that starting from episode 7 all the way through episode 106, it was a lot of episodes. Usually we would have a museum pick. So as everybody knows, actually a lot of our newer listeners and watchers may not know that I have a vast assortment of old stuff, IT related and consumer electronics. I've been a gadget nerd my whole life, and I just can't bring myself to throw away anything that takes batteries, plugs in, or has buttons or a screen. I call it a hobby. My wife calls it a serious hoarding problem to which I need professional help. The real truth is somewhere in the middle. And we've gone through a lot of the interesting pieces that I have. And I alluded to this a little before episode 200 somewhere back, that I don't really have a lot left of things interesting to talk about, Rich. I've been through most of the stuff. Now, it doesn't mean I have more stuff. I've got drawers and drawers of like network cards in my little closet over here, and I've got old sound cards and graphics, but I can't pick out a new, or listen, this is the D-Link 10100 network card. And then next week is like, here's an old Intel 10100 network, because that's not interesting at all. So we've kind of hit the highlights. As I go around, I might find some more stuff. And I only have, as far as I know right now, one museum pick left. I've been kind of saving it for when we needed it. So this is the episode where we need it. So I'm gonna do it. Isn't that sad, Rich? Now I got one thing left.
Well, you know what I'm thinking, and I've now forgotten. Is this episode 203?
203, yes.
So you made it 203 episodes. And not, there were some episodes in there where we didn't do a museum pick, as you were saying, but you have so much stuff in the museum, Matt. Instead of, thinking about how sad, just how impressive is it that we managed to fill 200-ish episodes with legitimate museum picks.
And we went into the consumer world on occasion. Like I got a lot of old video game stuff, and I've talked about a lot of the consoles. I don't think I've talked about each and every one of them, but over time we might bring something up. Like this segment's not going away. Like I might find something new or find something else old to talk about. But we also might in future shows kind of do like a historical pick where we don't have to talk about something I own. This is the whole gist of this segment throughout the course of the show has been I hold in my hand something that I have. Well, we don't have to limit ourselves to only the things I have. There's lots of really old, cool showpieces of technology, historical importance that we can talk about. I just don't have one here because if I get too much more of this stuff, my wife will kick me out of the house, and that would be bad, Rich, because then I'd be homeless, and that would not be good. And then she'd have all of my stuff. See, that would be like, we're talking about marriage, right? Balance of power, right? Can't overdo it on the tech stuff. Important, folks. All right. Anyway, I'm kind of wasting time and just talking. So my last museum pick that I can think of that I own that is interesting is this. I'm holding it up, and the lights are kind of making it hard for people to see on the screen. What is this? For those who are listening, I'm holding a black box on which it says WD Black Squared Dual Drive. What the heck is this? You are saying, Rich, even though you're not actually saying it, but I know you're thinking it. What is so this is the Western Digital Black Squared, I guess. I don't know, Black 2, whatever it is. This is the only one of its kind that I know of. And I tried to do a little research before the show to see if anybody else built something like this. And there was one. Seagate had a line of drives that were not exactly like what this is. There were hybrid drives. So what is this anyway? So this is a notebook hard drive or a portable hard drive. I guess you could install it on a desktop too. It doesn't matter. But it's a 2.5-inch storage drive. But it contains two drives. It contains a 128 gig SSD, and it contains a 1 terabyte spinning hard drive. Now, so the time I have to go back and look at what year this was. It was, oh, schmoly, what year was it, Rich? Stall for me. I looked it up because I was going to do this on a show before, and I had it in my head. I'll have to look it up. But it was that time period where SSDs were not huge, and they were kind of expensive, right? Especially once you got past like the 64, 128 gig models, they got really expensive really quickly. But 128 gigs is not enough storage space, especially at the time, for a computer, right? Because it was kind of before cloud storage was big. I mean, a lot of people now can run on very, very small drives if you kind of keep everything in something like OneDrive or Google Drive, and only sync down stuff that you need and then unsync it when you don't need it. But at the time, there wasn't really a good way. It was very expensive to get a big SSD. So you normally had to install an SSD and a hard drive. Well, Western Digital decided, well, why both? Why not have it built into one drive? And I don't mean Microsoft OneDrive. I mean into one physical drive. And that's what this was. So and it only worked with Windows. It didn't work with anything else. But when you plugged it in, it presents itself as two independent disks, even though it's one, which was really, really weird at the time, but also kind of cool. So you could kind of have a smaller. So if you had like a notebook, for example, that only had a 2.5 bay, you could upgrade to this, and then you could add an SSD and still have hard drive storage in one drive. Kind of cool. And I mentioned that Seagate had something similar. But the drives that Seagate were building were hybrid drives. Basically, what it did was it was a spinning hard drive, but they put in like a cache of SSD flash storage that kind of acted as like a like a buffer, if you will. So as you were using stuff, it would put files and stuff that you were using or accessing frequently into this flash cache, if you will, and then it would check the cache first and read stuff from there before it went to the disk, which was another way of like boosting performance with SSD without having to have a big SSD. It didn't work great because if the file you needed or if the program you're launching wasn't in this cache of flash storage, that it would have to go to the disk, and it was slow using a hard disk. Whereas this one was like you have 128 gig SSD and you have a hard drive, so you can install your OS and a lot of your apps to the SSD, keep your data on the hard drive, and then you had the best of both worlds. Really cool stuff. As far as I know, this is the only drive of its kind that ever existed. I have not been able to find any other manufacturer or any other model that built in a hard drive and an SSD into one physical unit. Now, folks, if you know of one, let me know. I tried to do some homework and tried to do some research. There's a lot of models of storage drives, Rich, and they stretch back pretty far. I didn't find it. All I found was this one and the Seagate hybrid drives that worked a little bit differently. So what a really interesting kind of piece to talk about. What do you think about that? Isn't that weird, Rich?
Weird that there weren't more like it, or just weird that they kind of melded these two things together in one box, basically.
Yeah, just weird that they tried it, and that it existed as a product. And they never did another one after that. And I'm trying to think of the reasoning why. Probably because SSDs got larger and cheaper. Would probably be my primary reasoning. The reason I can probably think of why they didn't do it again. But there was a time period where even a 256 was still pretty expensive and really not enough storage space. But this one, I guess maybe it didn't. Maybe it was kind of the fact that it only worked with Windows, I think might have hurt it a little bit. And that I guess maybe just SSD costs going down, less need for on-device storage. What are the reasons can you think for it fading away, Rich?
The thing, and who knows if this was an issue or not, but anytime I see a piece of hardware that combines multiple functions like that in one case, my first thought is, if the spinning disk drive fails, I'm losing my SSD as well. I mean, is there some problem about if you put both those things together into one device, they live or die in unison?
Well, that's true, actually. If you were to install this, if the controller goes bad, you lose both of your drives, which I guess would be kind of a bummer. Rich, I finally got it out of the box. I was fighting with the box. So this one I never even opened. Look at that. It is brand new, sealed in the package, Rich. Look at that. I never even opened it. I had two of these at one point, and I don't know what happened to the other one. Because I was gonna put this in a laptop at the time, and I think the laptop broke or something, and it was too late to return it, so I ended up keeping it. And I'm glad I did, because it's an interesting piece. So that's my museum pick, my last one, a very unique museum pick, the Western Digital Black squared hybrid two separate drives in one unit. So I also have a tech pick. We haven't done one of those in a long time. I'd like to bring the tech pick back. I miss talking about technology every show. We're gonna work on that if we have time in the episodes, Rich. But as most people know, I like to play a little bit of it. That was then, this is now. So these days, you don't really need a hybrid drive like this, right? As SSDs are plentiful, and they come in much higher capacities than they did back in the day. And there's several brands, manufacturers, so I decided to go out and pick one. So let's talk about a good one, and this is the one that I talked about here. That I picked. Let me see if I can pull it up on the screen for those watching. There we go. So this is the Samsung 870 EVO. Now, because my museum pick was a 2.5-inch disc for like a laptop, I decided to go ahead and pick a 2.5-inch size one. If you want a PCI Express one, of course that's what you want if your computer supports PCI Express drives. They're much faster. But if they're not, this is a good upgrade if you still have a drive that's connected via SATA that you want to plug in and upgrade that speed to. So this is the 870 EVO. It's not much to look at. It's an SSD, obviously, but they're really fast, which is pretty cool. Let me stop sharing that there. This one comes in a lot of different capacities. So, Rich, like I said, you can even buy this one in a 128. 250 is the smallest, but it comes in 500 gig, terabyte, 2 terabyte, and 4. We are at the point in time we have 4 terabyte SSDs now. Isn't that crazy? Because it's SATA. If you compare the read and write speeds on this compared to like a PCI Express unit, it's going to be this is going to look significantly slower because it's SATA, but it's 560 megs read, 530 sequential write. Folks, if you are using a computer that doesn't have a SSD as its primary drive for the OS and apps, you are really doing yourself a disservice from a performance perspective. So absolutely take a look at getting an SSD for that particular machine. I can't imagine many people are not running on SSDs now, but yeah, those comes with a 5-year warranty and really long endurance. Good stuff. So that's one of many good SSDs that are out there. Rich, how many do you want?
Well, you know what? I mean, it would be an upgrade. This is a very new laptop that I'm working on here right now, but it's got about a 0.5 terabyte SSD in there, and yeah, 4 terabytes. I could probably figure out something to do with all that space.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of space, and the PCI Express ones you get similar capacities, big ones now. Crazy stuff. So anyway, that's my museum pick and my tech pick: the Samsung 870 Evo and my old Western Digital black squared. Cool stuff. So, Rich, we're at that point of the show where you need to kind of start using your brain, your noggin, and think back to things that we might have missed, and tell us what we might see in the week to come.
Well, in terms of the things you might have missed, a great way to catch up on that is to read our In Case You Missed It post. It appears every Friday on ChannelProNetwork.com, written by our own James Gaskin. This week, he's going to catch you up in the news out of NetApp's Insight show. NetApp, very interesting vendor to watch these days, folks. They are making a big move into the cloud. James will talk a little bit about what they announced at their Insight show this week. We've got some new phones from Google, you may have seen, some new laptops from Apple, you may have seen. And, if it feels like we've all been kind of dodging hazards, threats, ransomware, viruses, and so on, James has a story about somebody who wound up just narrowly avoiding a threat from a most unexpected direction. You will enjoy that, and I won't give away the secret. Looking ahead to next week, it is another big event on the channel, the event circuit next week. So Acronis, the security vendor, security and BDR, cyber resilience, they're going to be hosting their Cyber Fit Summit in Miami. I will be there. I am not only going to be there and covering it, I am speaking. I'm moderating a panel and speaking on another one. So I will be there in Miami next week. Axient, the BDR folks, are hosting their annual MSP experience event. TeamViewer is hosting their Connect event. Intel next Thursday will be doing their Innovation 2021 show. I'll be back home in Seattle by then, so I'll be attending that one virtually. And the ASCII group is doing their latest event. They're going to be in Orlando next week. Lots and lots of events going on.
And how are you going to divide yourself or clone yourself so you can attend all of these at the same time?
Alas, if only I could do that. You know what? If I could do it, I would. I absolutely would in a heartbeat. But no, I'm just. I'm going to be at the Acronis show and the Intel show, and I'll just have to hear from other folks what happened at Axient, TeamViewer, etc.
Very cool. Well, we'll certainly look forward to that. I'm sure it's going to be a busy week, so it's going to be awesome stuff. We'll have a lot then to talk about on the show next week. You're not going to want to miss that as well. And folks, that's it. Channel Pro Weekly is the name of the show. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere those podcasts you can find us. Subscribe is the easiest way. That way, the shows just come down and you can listen to them soon as they hit the airwaves. Although there really isn't airwaves on the internet, but you know what I mean. If you like to watch, we're on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel there. Hit the like button for this video. Hit subscribe, the bell, all that stuff you got to do to subscribe to stuff on YouTube now. It's a multi-step process, but it's worth it. Then you can check it out every week on YouTube. And also leave some comments there. We want to hear from you. Podcast@ChannelProNetwork.com is the email. If you want to send us an email, we would love to get those your voice on the show. So send those emails our way. And of course, set your homepage to ChannelProNetwork.com. That's the website. There you'll find news, articles, white papers, resources, downloads, all kinds of really, really good stuff to keep you aware of what's going on in the industry. on top of the latest news and stuff that will help you be more successful with your business. Lots and lots of good stuff. Go there, check it out. Check out our events and join us in an upcoming event, November 16th and December something.
December 2nd, I think.
December 2nd. We got two events coming up. Register for both of those. There's going to be lots of great stuff, a lot of good content that you're going to get out of that, and join us for that. Events.channelpronetwork.com is the website for that. And with that, we're going to say goodbye, but we will see everybody in episode 204 next week. See you then.